Welcome back, Washington Walk-Ons fans, episode 262 of the podcast. This is the pre-Wisconsin, pre-Heartland Trophy, pre-put the balls back on the bull podcast. And I can't lie, boys, I'm a little nervous for this one. This is always the game that I'm most nervous for on the Hawk schedule because personally, I feel like it's the one that means the most. It's the one that we are able to win the least often. Aside from fucking Purdue, which we just don't even need to revisit that for another 365 days because I just can't fucking take it. But the Heartland Trophy is a extremely hard one to win, man. That team is a hard team to beat. The way they play football, it's just had our number for the last few years. So this podcast is the anxiety podcast, the Where's the Xanax podcast, the let's get this shit over with and bring the bull home as quickly as possible podcast. Kluver, what do you have?
It's not the DHT podcast.
Nope, not today.
That's a special one. They only get that on Tuesdays. People fiending for that too, by the way. People asking, there was a little mix up for a second in the app, and some people had to like reload after it showed it popped up on the Patreon. Thanks to those on the Patreon, patreon.com/washupwalkons. We appreciate everybody that's following along with us over there. We got to get the Boilermakers off the schedule, man. We gotta get them out of there somehow.
Let's just not even go there. Let's just move on. The boys moved on. We gotta move on. I shouldn't have even said it.
Harder to beat David Bell than it is to get the bull back. Holy shit. We got Wisconsin. We got Wisconsin in Wisconsin. Old Camp Randall. You know?
It's a tough place to play, man. I cannot express how hard it is to play in Camp Randall Stadium. They are loud. And my dad, listen, we've already spoken. My dad was a really smart guy, right?
Yeah.
My dad was fully convinced that they were cheating in Camp Randall by pumping extra crowd noise in on top of their crowd noise when we had the ball. And he was right up to a point, right? But then I always thought that they shut it off because they have to, like that's a rule.
Yep.
You have to shut off your audio like with 25 seconds left in the snap count or something whatever
like that, yeah.
But Pops was absolutely convinced that in Camp Randall, especially against the Hawks, they did not cut that crowd noise because it was just too loud in there to even hear yourself think.
It was loud. I would call it maybe the closest to Kinnick in the Big Ten.
Dude, listen, when you're backed up in that back corner up against their student section on the 2-yard line.
In the bowl.
Listen, pal, we had fullback dive called, and we didn't even get that executed because it was either a delay game. It was either delay a game or false start because nobody could even hear Nate screaming on a play as easy as a fullback dive where he's under center. Like that's how loud it was.
Yeah. It's a stadium that felt like to me like football. Like that's a football stadium. It was a good place to play. Little odd that their student section doesn't fill in until about halftime. That's a weird part. But
that makes me hate Wisconsin even more because they're not actually like loyal students. You know?
They're not there for the full experience. And maybe they would argue like, oh yeah, we stay out and tailgate longer, but like it just doesn't feel. It feels weird.
There's people out on the field who are giving everything they have for their entire life to entertain, and you guys are just fucking leaving the stadium open.
They're missing the show.
It's unbelievable.
It's weird. Wisconsin is 4-3, which is very out of character for the Badgers this year, which quite frankly doesn't make me feel any more confident going into there.
It's just like Iowa State.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they haven't won a game, still worried about the game.
Yep. Because you're going to get their best. They want that trophy just as bad as we do.
Yeah, and it just seems that they always, God, it was like you could feel it coming off of them. They were just playing their best game. And
Listen, man,
I hated it.
this game is really good and really bad at the same time. It's really good that we're getting this game off of a bye week.
Really good. The best.
Because because the longer that players get to digest what their assignments are and what checks are in against a 3-4 defense,
Mm-hmm.
the better it's going to be, especially with a young offensive line.
Yeah.
Having a young offensive line go from blocking 4-3 defense for the most part, over fronts, under fronts, even fronts, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, it's 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers, and some sort of formation. The way Wisconsin aligns confuses even veteran college offensive linemen.
Yeah.
The young kids, they could put their minds in a blender. And if they got extra time to just watch the film, to just see what's happening, to just feel what would be happening when they're up in that situation, it's better for them when the bullets are actually flying. This is the worst game to be playing coming off of a game where it could have deflated your confidence, right? Because this is a game where you would much rather be riding high, feeling like you are on top of your game and you can't be beat, because that extra confidence going into Camp Randall playing the Badgers it would be helpful.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Drake Kulik making some good observations on the Washed Up Walk-Ons today.
Hey man, I'm just trying to level up my podcasting game.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do it for y'all.
And I need it, because when you open up like you did last podcast, you dig me deep holes, man.
Hey, did the people laugh? Did anybody laugh?
Some people laughed. Hard to make people laugh when you drop banging kids lines, But
yeah,
but it's a lot of people with kids out there, But
right, and I'm defending their kids. I'm
right.
saying
No, I
that,
know we're on the kids' side.
we're on the kids' side.
But you're right. Wisconsin, similar to Iowa State. That is probably why it's a factor. It's a variable in why both of these games are closer than you'd like them to be every year. Because Iowa State doesn't even play a 3-4. They play like a 5-3-3 or something weird like that. They run some. They created their own defense. And Wisconsin, God, I think about guys like Joe Schobert, dude. When we played against him, he's still playing. I think he plays for the Browns. Does he play for the Browns, or is he?
No, he did play for the Browns. He's now potentially in Jacksonville.
Okay, he's somewhere, and he was
Somewhere.
good. He was good, and they just had all these dudes who were. You know why it sucked is because we were looking at us. We were looking at us across, like, discipline, hard nose. That's the other thing coming off the bye week. A lot of time to look at the schemes, none bigger than the offensive line, right? Because that's Coach Ferentz said in his press conference. I watched the press conference from yesterday. We're recording this on Wednesday, as we always do. It's a split episode, by the way. You'll notice Kevin Ward isn't here. Which 2 million downloads, by the way, we hit this morning total. You probably didn't see that, but 2 million downloads.
No, you posted that on Instagram, didn't you?
I put it on Instagram as well.
I saw that. And it's actually my fault to the people that we don't have mine and Kevin's banter at the same time. Got a buddy in town that's only going to be in town for the night. He's got a job to do tomorrow, and then fly out. Shout out to Rob Ton, friend of the podcast. I'm going to go hang out with him tonight and hopefully get some tickets for tomorrow. But if he can't find any, he can't find any. So
I was going to say he's a little bit. He's not just your average buddy, Plays for the Packers.
I don't know, man. We've got famous friends. Like we ended up doing something that was really cool, and even though we didn't make it to the level that we would have desired, like some of our friends did, and that's all they are at the end of the day. They're our friends, they're our teammates, they're our family. Like you fall on a sword for your family members, and that's just what you build through football. And some of them got famous, but it doesn't change what we are as friends.
It is weird though. Like does it ever hit you? Do you ever dissociate with that? And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah. And it happens
George Kittle's a superstar.
Well, it happens when I have to tell people that I'm moving to Nashville and what I'm doing.
Right.
And then I never name drop, but I just like describe it as a private strength conditioning operation.
But
But then
eventually you get there a lot of the time.
eventually, well, not on the first try, they don't. But if people keep prodding, I'll like give them like one more detail. And then by like the fifth time they ask me about it, I'll just be like, okay, like let me just break this down for you. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I try to be as low profile as possible because like bragging about your friend's success is
It's
so beta. Like
yeah,
that's so pussy.
it's
Like
weird.
my friends are famous. Like I know I didn't make anything of myself, but my friends are famous. Like that's so pussy.
I know, and everybody out there has like a famous friend, or someone that has like is known to the public. But for us in the sporting world, it's like, I mean, you just list them down the line. I mean, it's weird. The podcast has even taken us to a spot where, my 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 father-in-law, they're Nebraska fans, and it's not like
Boo.
it's not like they're massive football fans to begin with. So they just enjoy sports in general. But he's a huge golfer, and when we were in talks with Zach Johnson last year about this time, which by the way, we need
Got to get back with Zach.
got to get him back. And the way we're going to do that
Send
is
Zach a Hawks by a million flag.
I'm going to send him a flag. But the way we're going to do that is when we decide like, oh, there's a good time to input Zach into the rotation here, I'm just going to text him. Like I have his number. I was texting back and forth with Big E the other day. Like it's just this weird shit, man. And so, yeah, Bobby Ton, tight end for the Packers, you're going to go hang out with him. Not a big deal.
If he doesn't buy me dinner, he's a total dick. Because
Total
I think
dick.
he's making like 4.4 this year or something.
Yeah, let's search that up. Rob Tonyan. That's the best part about NFL athletes. It's like they can't really hide what they make.
Can't hide it, dude, especially with the Packers because they're publicly owned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, what is this? It says base salary is 1 million for this year, but it says yearly cash 3.3. I'm a little confused where he falls between those. But he's making a lot of money. So he should be able to buy you a steak.
Yeah.
Speaking of Wisconsin, Green Bay. But back to the Badgers. Lost their opener to Penn State. Early games in the year are hard to judge because you never know if a team takes a bit to get their feet under them. You never know. You just never know in the beginning. It takes a little bit to find that mesh, that gel. And they played Penn State real close, 16-10 game. It was at home. And if this is a place where we'd love the transitive property to work in our favor because we beat Penn State beat them. Oh, cool. We should beat Wisconsin. Not that easy. They then beat Eastern Michigan, but then got spanked by Notre Dame. Notre Dame spanked them bad. And Graham Mertz, I mean, the score was actually a little bit not indicative of how close it was. It was about, 27-13 in the fourth quarter. And then they threw 2 pick sixes and it ended up 41-13. And then went to Michigan, or no. These were all home games that they've lost. So maybe this is good. Maybe they don't know how to play at home this year.
That's what happens when their shitbird students don't show up for them.
They lost at home to number 19 Penn State to start the year. Third game of the year, they lost to number 12 Notre Dame. And then the next week after that, they got spanked by Michigan, 38-17. And Michigan threw it all over them. They looked bad in those 2 losses to Notre Dame and Michigan. The problem with Wisconsin was, for them, they could not create turnovers. Not at all. They handled Purdue on Saturday. And what did they do but create 4 turnovers? Won the turnover battle.
That it's the most important factor in all of football.
So hopefully they got them out of their system. The Iowa offense has been able to hold on to the ball fairly decent. I'd love to know if I was a great podcast host. I'd say I'm a good podcast host. If I was a great podcast host, I would have the Iowa turnover
Plus minus.
ranking.
I'll bet we're plus 10 or 11 because we have some like 21 turnovers, something like that.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I was thinking more out of the 130 teams, where do we rank in turnover margin? I would say we're closer to the top half. Wisconsin was, before Purdue, in the bottom 30. Like, they were 100th rankings in turnover margin. So that's not good. And so you may say that the whole point of this game, I mean, if it's going to be a 10-6 game like we played in 2015, by the way, the one touchdown scored in that 2015 game was George Kittle, and it was his first touchdown as a Hawkeye. You know that?
In the Wisconsin game?
Yeah. That little,
he was so open, dude.
where he leaked out, to the flat.
Yeah, to the corner.
Otherwise,
I'm looking right here, and it says that Iowa ranks 17th in their turnover margin.
In the country.
In the country?
Wow. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me because of how many we've created and how many we haven't given to the other team. So that would.
But then here this says Iowa is number 1. Okay, I'm not sure what.
Well, are we number 1 in the Big Ten?
No. It says we're number 1. Wake Forest is number 2. Middle Tennessee is number 3. Kent State's number 4. In 2021, we're averaging plus 1.7 turnovers against our opponent per game. In the last 3 games, we're averaging plus 2.3 turnovers. And that's even with losing the last game by a 3 turnover margin. In away games, we are 5.5 turnovers above our opponents. And at home, we are just breaking even.
I found the same website you did. Holy smokes, we are number 1. My goodness.
With almost an average of plus 2 turnover takeaway margin per week.
We are tied. Yeah, we're tied with Wake Forest with 1.7, plus 1.7 on the turnovers. We have to make that a thing on Saturday.
We have every single game. If this Hawkeye team wants to win, we have to win the turnovers, even if it's by 1. Just winning the turnovers by 1 means that we almost guaranteed won the field position battle, because that's how you lose the field position battle. And that's how you give up easy points, is turnovers. If you win the field position battle, we've seen what our defense can do even better this year than for always, but Hawks defense has always been a bend, don't break defense. And if you allow them 90 plus yards to implement that strategy, they're going to force the other team to screw up, put themselves in a disadvantageous situation, and probably lose their possession. So like, that's why the turnover takeaway battle is the most important in the whole game of football. Especially for a team who doesn't have an explosive offense and wins the game based on field position and ball control.
I was just going to say, if you look at some of the games where we've really struggled offensively, Colorado State, Penn State, Purdue, those are our worst 3 games when it comes to field position and turnover margin. I think we won the Colorado State one by 1, or maybe we were even tied. I think we threw a pick to them right before half, and I think we had 1 pick. So that we were even, right? I don't know what Penn State's was. Purdue.
We beat Penn State by a couple, especially because of the second half.
Yeah. It was, and I would love to see these rankings, Iowa, Wake Forest, Middle Tennessee, go down the list. I would love to see the distribution on records, like these teams' records. I would imagine very clearly, if you go down from Iowa at number 1 all the way down to, Arizona and Memphis are the opposite of us, all the way at -2 per game. That's not good. You're going to find, and there you go. Wisconsin is number 123.
Yikes.
That's after getting 4 against Purdue on Saturday.
Yikes. They're dead last without that.
Pretty damn close. So that could be, you're looking at number 1 versus almost number 130 in a very, very important stat. That's
the most important, the single most important.
You're looking at
Coach Davis always said, and I think Phil Parker would echo this 100% because his defense feasts on turnovers. Like that's Coach Parker is always in practice talking about you get the football. Like when you're tackling, the first guy get there, make sure he's wrapped up. The second guy go get that football. Like every coach that I've ever played for is absolutely rabid about getting the football,
being greedy,
and equally as emphatic about holding on to the ball. We don't care if we have to punt. Do not give the ball away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you look at those games I mentioned, Colorado State, their punter was a dog, and he had us backed up. Purdue murdered us in the field game position, partially because they got super lucky, and it just so happened that the times that they were punting, they were with the wind. The times we were punting, we were against the wind. Part of that is your offense. You can't blame the whole thing on wind. You got to be able to drive into a wind too. But our offense obviously does better when you only have to go half the field. It's just a little bit easier to get to the end zone when you have half the distance to go. So for those of you listening at home, if Iowa starts this game off, throws a pick or fumbles, and then by halftime we got another turnover, probably not looking good here. Probably not looking good. And it's interesting because Wisconsin generally a defense that prides themselves on turnovers as well. I hope that they haven't caught fire and found something, right? The health of our team, as you mentioned, because of the bye week, is much better. Hopefully on the offensive line for sure. We're playing a offense that Graham Mertz only has, he doesn't even have 1,000 yards passing yet. Petrus has 120 completions for 1,330 yards, 6 picks. Mertz has 85 completions for 950 yards, 7 picks. Only 2 thrown touchdowns.
It's a bad year, bro.
They don't throw well. You think we don't throw well?
To be honest, their starting running back, the kid that transferred over, Chaz, whatever his name is,
yep,
not that good, not explosive, and not that powerful. Their backup running back, way better, way more dangerous.
And they're good, but they're not Melvin Gordon. They're not Jonathan Taylor.
No,
right?
no.
Usually,
not even close.
Usually we walk into Camp Randall, or they walk into Kinnick, and we have to deal with an all-time running back. I mean, they damn near went back to back to back all-timers with all the way back to Monty Ball in like 2010, 2011, and then Melvin came in, and then Jonathan Taylor. I mean, are you kidding me with that? So finally, Wisconsin, I don't know if you call it a miss, but they don't have what they've had. And that should be good for the defense, right? Defensively, we should not struggle this game. Also, I think the defense is probably pissed.
Got to be pissed.
Because they let David Bell eat their lunch.
And ruin their season.
We will be without Riley Moss still for this week. So it'll be...
Did they ever disclose what that injury was?
A sprained PCL. Just weird, hopped up, and I don't know.
Thank God it was a sprain of the least important ligament in your knee.
Right.
And LCL, lateral collateral ligament, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Want to make sure. Yeah.
PCL is
posterior cruciate.
Yeah. And then obviously ACL. Their best receiver. Our best receiver, some would say, it's Laporta, by the way, 28 receptions for 332 yards. You're like, oh, wow, you've got a tight end as your best receiver?
Dude, Laporta's so good. He plays, oh, God, he's good.
He's so solid. When you look at Wisconsin, their best receiver has 18 catches this year. 18 catches for 240 yards. David Bell did that against us in one game.
Yeah.
Their best receiver has that through 7 games.
Mhm.
They're not going to throw the ball, and then they're going up
Dude,
against.
that's exactly why the over-under is set where it's set.
It's going to be a 10-6 game, dude.
Everybody knows that we struggle historically against 3-4 defenses. Our offenses have never been efficient against 3-4 for whatever reason. I always had it figured out in my head. I don't know why these other bozos couldn't figure this shit out, but that's neither here nor there. So that's just where we're at, man. It's going to be a low scoring game.
Now, when we're talking about, so when we run out there and Jack Campbell and the boys take the field, we shouldn't feel too worried about it. What we should be cheering for is the picks, the fumbles. We got to cause those turnovers. We need the short field. Defense has to help us win the game. When we're looking at their defense, though they haven't created turnovers, they are still the second best defense in the country, allowing only 223 yards per game. And I just want to take a quick note that Georgia is almost allowing less than 200 a game at 208. Dude, do you know how good that is? Georgia is allowing 208 yards per game. They're letting you go down the field and back.
In the SEC, where it's very hard to argue against the conference as a whole having the best athletes.
And Wisconsin's only 15 yards behind them. After that, it's actually Iowa State is third, and they're 40 yards, 263. So Wisconsin and Georgia's defenses are actually on another level when you're talking about how many yards per game they allow. Iowa, if you're wondering, for those at home, is at 12th with 301 yards per game. So,
and that got hurt bad by David Bell himself.
Yeah, it did. So clearly, we need that right there speaks to even more of the reason why we need short fields. We need Torrey Taylor to be big time. We need to get a little bit lucky. And when we do punt the ball, we need to have a little bit of wind. We need to be out from our own end zone a little bit.
You know what's another extremely important stat in this game I'm predicting?
No.
Number of first downs.
Yeah.
The more first downs you can get, that means the longer your offense has the ball.
Yeah.
The more they're wearing down the defense for the later part of the game, which is when it's actually important. And man, if the Hawks can put together first downs, that means they're converting on third downs and keeping Wisconsin's defense on the field. That would be huge.
And hopefully, as you mentioned, all those different downs, third down for us defensively needs to be that's been, for as good as our defense is, we have not been as good as we would like on third down defense this year. And State murdered us when Clifford was in the game. Several other teams have. Purdue did. With an offense as lackluster as Wisconsin has put out there, we have to win against them on third down defense. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we have them in third and longs. We can't let them run for 3 or 4 yards on first and second and let them have third and twos, third and threes. Like, we need them to be in third and 7, third and long. Mm-hmm. That's where we're going to force turnovers, because now we force Graham Mertz to have to throw the ball, and clearly he doesn't do that well. Simple game. Not easy, but it's simple, right? Let me pull up the old pod plan here. I was gonna read. I had a bunch of stuff, but then we kind of just went off. There's
dude, we kill this podcasting shit. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, I agree. I'll suck myself off. I mean, that's really all we need. I'm gonna cut it here, and you guys are gonna hear from Kevin as well. He's I guess working. I mean, guy, this is our job. Just quit. And
that's all we got for these people.
Yeah.
You got any more questions for me? You bum.
I've got this. I'm gonna bring this. Listening to Coach Ferentz's press conference yesterday, they were asking him about mobile quarterbacks. Coach Ferentz did not seem to be in the best of moods during this press conference either. He kept it. It was his shortest one, to my knowledge this year, and there's a funny. I'll actually give two little anecdotes from it. But the first one was, he said when asked about the quarterback, he said that they're committed to building around the quarterback that they have. I don't think some fans would enjoy that. But he said, we don't get to pick the mold as well as the pro guys do. Meaning, when you get to draft your player, you don't get you really don't get the opportunity for that drafted player to say, no, I'm good. You know?
Unless you're Eli Manning.
Right. When you're recruiting, you've got maybe 2 or 3 guys that maybe more. I don't know. I'm not a recruiter. Drake is. He recruits. But
we're going to find out in like a year if I'm successful or not.
But you've got a few guys that you identify as good quarterbacks. And sure, you could say, well, then as a coaching staff, don't identify and start going after a guy unless he's a mobile quarterback. But you don't always have that luxury. If you can't just pass on pocket passers either. You got to go after guys who you have a chance of getting and who might turn into something. And that's just part of the intuition of being a recruiting kind of guy. And it just so happens that the guys that have chosen Iowa haven't been mobile. CJ was mobile. Nate and Petrus, they weren't as mobile. Right. So I thought that was interesting that KF said they're committed to building around the QB, which you saw when we had CJ, we were able to do different things. And now when you have Stanley or Petrus, you have to mold that offense and what you're running a little bit around them. At the end of the press conference, I don't know if you saw Mike Leach's Halloween candy answer on Twitter or Instagram at all.
I did not. He
went into like a 2-minute. Someone asked him about Halloween candy, and he started talking about candy innovation and candy corn and all this shit because he's just an absolute character.
He's an icon.
Someone asks Coach Ferentz at the end of the press conference, Coach Leach said he despises candy corn. Did you give us your top 3 Halloween candy answer? And in Coach's face, you could see him in his mind. For someone that has been in a ton of meetings with him, you could see him go, are you fucking kidding me? Okay. He wanted to fucking kill this guy. He says, yeah, I'm not that colorful. He's a fascinating guy. I recommend his book, but I'm thinking about Wisconsin's line right now. Okay. And then he laughed and he goes, and they ain't candy corn. I know that. And then he's like, thanks guys. See you next week. And just cut the press conference. I mean, it was like, ooh, he was not interested in answering that question. So clearly I think it's been, the players aren't the only ones that have to chew on it. Coaches are chewing on it too. Coach Ferentz is sitting there in his office every day like, God damn it, I can't figure out a way to beat Purdue. And
hey, man, what do you think Coach Ferentz would do if all of a sudden he came up to the podium in his press conference and the first question was from you, the second one was from Kevin, and the third one was from me?
I think he would love it.
I think he would love it too, dude. And I think that we would have questions prepared that he typically doesn't get to answer.
Absolutely.
And he would be able to be a little more insightful in ways that he doesn't get to otherwise. Yeah. And I think it would be awesome. And I would love to give him the hugest squeeze, man. I would be like, oh, I love you, man.
And I was thinking about that as I watched the press conference because there were several topics that got brought up. And I was just like, that's such a dumb fucking question, man. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to some of the beat writers and the reporters that do this shit, but
you should come on our podcast and take notes, man, because we got this shit on lock.
I mean, I understand that it's part of the job too. It's not all on them. They have to ask those blanket questions of what does the bye week do for your team? Is the bye week is this a good time for the bye week? Dude, come on. It's always a great time for a bye week. Of course the players are healthier. They got to go home. They got to see their come on now. Coach Ferentz is standing up there like, holy shit, all right.
I answered this 22 years in a row.
I got to answer these fucking questions, okay? I think we could make him stop for a second and think, wow, that's actually an insightful question. And I actually need to dig for a second to pull out an answer. And yeah, I don't know. The chances that you, Drake, and I, or you, Kevin, and I grab press passes and end up in the Hanson facility asking KF questions on a Tuesday.
Dude, I don't think we need press passes, pal. I think if I'm not mistaken, we have lifetime access to that play. I don't think maybe me, my access may have been revoked. I think you two are still clean. So I'm pretty sure you two could still show up at Hanson, walk right in the main doors with a nice shirt and tie on, with a notebook, and you don't walk straight up, shake the young girl's hand at the door, say, hey, Tyler Kluver, played here 2013 to 2017, and
I'm here for the press.
I'm going to interview Coach Ferentz today. Yeah. And then you just walk up the stairs right into the meal hall, All-American room, take your seat because you belong there way more than anybody else does that's holding a pen and pad. You actually been there.
I think you're right.
How could I be wrong?
Yeah, I don't.
You could walk straight up those stairs into Coach Woods' office, give him a big old hug, and then you and Coach Woods could walk hand in hand into Coach Ferentz's press conference, take a seat next to each other.
You know what I want more than anything? And I don't know if it will ever happen, but I want a in-person 2 to 3 hour sit down with KF, you, me, Kevin, and KF on the mic, where we can just get 2 to 3 hours of content get him sat down, loosen him up for 15, 20 minutes, catch up.
Have a couple Coors Lights, maybe?
I don't know about pops in the complex, but sit him down, and then flip on the microphone and just start talking about everything. God, that would be content. I think there's a chance of that someday. I don't know.
I think we gotta have extended success, man. We just gotta keep being successful in this little endeavor that we're on. And when we show Coach Ferentz that we actually truly worked for the success of this podcast and showed grit to form the sustainability, he'll be like, you know what, guys, this may not be my cup of tea, but I'm proud of you for the work you guys have displayed. And you guys took the lessons that we taught you in this complex about persistence and grit and not taking other people's bullshit, not listening to the outside noise and just grinding for what you want and what you believe in. And if we can show we can do that for a long period of time, I think the head man might throw us a bone.
I think he would too. He knows that we do the podcast, and he listened to the episode with James and Lomax. So it's not like he's not privy to it. I want to sit down with all the coaches we played for and have that discussion in person.
Can you imagine if the washed up walk-ons got an Iowa football roundtable?
Got them all? Just sat them all down?
KF, BF, Phil, Coach Woods, Coach Doyle,
Seth. It would be the most listened to thing ever. I think any Hawkeye fan that found out about it would listen to it twice.
Wally Bear would be an absolutely amazing podcast. His personality is so infectious. I love him. I love him with my whole core, dude.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, he's my dad. With that, and so is Big E. With that, we're gonna end this segment before we cut to Kevin on the other side of things. with a little Facebook review of the podcast.
Oh.
It's a good one. I looked on,
Oh.
yeah, there's some good ones. There's some bad ones. Since we started reading them, everybody's given us good 5-star reviews and trying to be
That's
funny.
nice.
So it is nice. This one says, this is from January 3rd of 2019. This is legit.
Yikes.
Which, by the way, we're a 5-star podcast. Rate us on your app or go to Facebook. We're 5 out of 5 from 17 reviews on Facebook. The podcast is amazing. I can't get enough. They bring a new perspective to many things and many intimate details that those of us that never played college football really thought about or considered, but love to learn about. Tyler, Drake, and Kevin are superstars, not as washed up as they claim.
Wow.
So,
hey, listen to this, dude.
take it.
Together, you, me, and Kevin had less football stars than we have podcasting stars.
Yeah, we did. Yes. Oh. Yeah, man. We're a 5-star podcast, but as a trio, we were a 1-star recruit. That's it. We'll cut it there. And we'll
If
dream
you
it.
have more fun with Kevin than you had in this podcast, I'll eat my hat.
Okay. I don't think we have to worry about that. I'm pretty sure we don't have to worry about that. In fact, on Twitter, when I announced that we had 2 million subscribers, I said, thank you from the walk-ons, Tyler, Drake, and sometimes Kevin. We'll be back in a second with Kevin Ward. Maybe he has some awards winners. We've been a little hot. I'll make sure that Drake sends me his picks after we stop recording here so that we have those to talk about as well.
I want Hawks in the points. That's one of my picks is Hawks in the points.
Yeah, and that Iowa under might be one of my picks. The Iowa Wisconsin under.
Yeah,
that might be it.
Even though, to be honest, taking an under in the mid-30s is financial suicide.
It is.
But in this particular situation, it may be plus EV, which is just asinine to say.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see where Kevin and I leave our thoughts in about 20 minutes, but we'll be back.
But give me Iowa and 3 points, because if we think there's going to be 16 points scored and Iowa's going to get 3 of them already, then I'll take that.
Yeah. All right, cool. We'll have all that coming up in a second.